Alrighty, welcome back to Lenz's Comic Corner, classic, last known classics. This is episode number 2352 and Doubleshot number, I think it's 2246. I got two Marvel trades basically for this one. Yes, two Marvel trades. Well, basically it's one digital, one physical book. I'm trying to check something here. Let's see. Yep. Don't know why I covered that twice, but it was kind of weird. Let's see. Yeah, the notes already covered already. So let's see. I think yeah. So basically, I am just checking some quickly here. Don't worry about that. Here we go. Perfect. Okay, so I was just checking on something and seeing if basically that of all the tie-ins here, basically this event if I covered already. Excuse me. I think there's one trade I see here I haven't covered it, but pretty much everything else I pretty much covered already for this event here. This is Siege Battlefield. This contains most of the one-shots that Siege had. Yeah, in case you don't know what Siege is, Siege was a crossover from the year 2010. When this came out, I have been reading comics at that point for 4 years. I remember when this comic event came out. Now, the Siege Battlefield, these are the series of one-shots. Now, surprisingly, Siege is a very interesting crossover. It's the conclusion to a lot of the stuff basically Billy's been working on that point since 2005. Like in the aftermath of this event, basically we return of the main team Avengers, where the series is revived for the first time since 2004. Yes, so a lot of this stuff we build up this point in time is pretty much wrapped up here, and we kind of start a new chapter forward for the next couple years before we have the Marvel Now relaunch. But in the case of these one-shots together, in case you're curious though about the series that tie into it, not many. Unlike, let's say, the previous year's Dark Reign, which had just about every single title tied into it, including a bunch of mini-series, one-shots. It's like Marvel OD'd on Dark Reign, just like in the previous year, 2008, where we OD'd on Secret Invasion. My guess is they probably didn't want the thing to stretch out for that long as those two things did. This has basically been building since like Secret Invasion. Basically the whole thing has got, you got the main mini-series, which is 4 issues, but in the case of ongoing series tied into this particular event, well, I discussed in the previous video the Avengers Initiative book, which I had discussed already. There is Dark Avengers, Dark Wolverine, Mighty Avengers, New Avengers, and 1-issue Mutants, along with 4-issue Thor and Thunderbolts. All the ongoing stuff I have covered already. This is, well, in the case of basically for one-shots particularly, well, mostly, now, these Battlefield one-shots focus on various characters. My guess is probably the reason why these characters did not take part in Siege, or at least have their own series tied into Siege, my guess is because they have all the Avengers books tied into it already, plus a couple solo books. So Marvel probably was, and this is my honest opinion, probably what happened here. Probably the reason we'd have more ongoing series tied into this, because for one thing, they did not want them to last very long, and probably because and this is my honest theory, what happened. I don't know, because I know anybody. I've met people who work at Marvel, but people who work in the story. If you're really curious, though, have I met anybody who worked on any of the stuff related to this particular story? The answer is No, I haven't. I have not met anybody associated with this particular story. None. I've never met Bendis at all. Never met Dan Slott or Karen Gillian. I have met nobody who worked on this damn thing. Not that I can think of. Well, actually, I think I did meet Greg Horn, who did work on Dark Avengers, but that was it. So I can't say that I've met anybody working this damn thing. So there's that. So I don't know. My theory, the reason why there's not a lot more tied into this particular event, because Marvel probably changed their crossover structure. Because the last couple of years, my guess is sales-wise, it probably wasn't big as they probably thought it would be. I'm sure probably the main events probably were selling really well, but they probably didn't want to OD on it because that's been a big problem with Marvel from about 2005 to about 2010, where that was a big issue with Marvel, was that there was way too many tie-ins. So they're like, okay, this is an Avengers event, keep it with the Avenger books, keep it with Avengers Initiative, Dark Avengers, Mighty Avengers, New Avengers. You can have Thunderbolts, Dark Wolverine, New Mutants. New Mutants is a bit of a surprising one because you were thinking this is the only X-Book tie-in because from what I've read, according to behind the scenes of this particular event, the X-Men were not going to get involved with this event. They're going to watch from the sidelines this whole time. The Fantastic Four, not involved with this story because they're watching from the sidelines because Marvel didn't necessarily have every single superhero involved with this whole entire thing. Despite the fact it would make a little bit of sense for Fantastic Four to be involved. The X-Men, kind of, yes. But the X-Men, the same period of time that this crossover was going on, the X-Men was the awesomeness that was Second Coming. What Fantastic Four? Well, whatever was going on in the book at that point. I think, if I remember correctly, I believe Hickman was the writer of the book at the time. So he probably was working on whatever big humongous story, and that run was fantastic. I love Hickman's run for Fantastic Four. That was one of 3 books he was working at the time, along with Secret Warriors and S.H.I.E.L.D. S.H.I.E.L.D. was amazing. I love S.H.I.E.L.D. Though after issue 4 of the second volume, it was delayed by several years, and then finally released the next several issues. Now, this particular book, one character surprisingly was not part of this book event was the Hulk. And you're thinking, the Hulk's not part of this event? Why? What was going on in his book that was preventing this happening? I think maybe he was dealing with the return of his I think he was dealing with his other son coming to Earth. That's probably the reason why he was not involved. I've never heard of the exact reason why the Hulk was not involved with the story, but at least Fantastic Four and X-Men there's a reason. But Hulk, I've never heard the reason why he's not involved with the story. Now, why isn't, let's say, the Iron Man book part of this thing? Well, for him, there's actually a good reason why. He missed part of the event because he was in a freaking coma. Something he did to himself. That's why he's not in the event, a lot of it. Because if you're like, wait, where's Iron Man? In a coma. Because you gotta read his book to understand what the heck's going on with that. You're thinking, okay, so who's the big hero of this whole thing? Thor is. Yep, Thor is. So this particular series of one-shots, you have one for Spider-Man, Young Avengers, Loki, Captain America, and Secret Warriors. Fun fact, I've actually discussed 2 of these one-shots already. And you're thinking, where have I discussed them? The Siege Secret Warriors one-shot, I actually discussed in this one of the Secret Warriors trades. And as for Siege Spider-Man, I discussed that in the Miss Marvel by Brian Reed. It was actually collected in the 3rd volume of the trades. But what about these other ones? Loki is mostly put what he was up to during the whole thing. It does loosely tie into the main event of why in the war he took away the Norn Stones away from the Hood, because the Hood got the Norn Stones in the pages of New Avengers. That was most of what was going on in that issue, and that was done by Karen Gillian, which makes sense. He was writing Thor at the time, so of course he read this one shot. The Captain America one, this was introduced by Christos Gage. Now, why wasn't the Captain America title part of this? Well, there's kind of a reason why. Well, Steve had just come back from being in the past. It was something Brubaker did. Now, when he came back, he actually been gone at that point for about 2 years. In story, he was gone for 1 year. Because they had a thing where Thor basically blacked out, watched AC for 1 minute for a moment of silence for basically mourning his death, and Sharon Carter found a way to bring him back to present day. So, at least his one-shot, as why his series was not doing it. Well, because the series was actually on hiatus around the time this started. So, I think he had just wrapped up Captain America Reborn, and the next of issues that came afterwards to America has not been released yet. You're thinking, okay, what about Spider-Man? Why didn't he have his main book tie into it? Because he was dealing with the Gauntlet at that point. Yes, seriously, his book was dealing with the Gauntlet. Okay, so Young Avengers didn't have a title at this point in time, so there's that. Okay. Alright, Miss Marvel's book had actually wrapped up during when this book was coming out. So, that's why she's featured in the Spider-Man one-shot. And it's revealed in the story, and I mentioned this, it's revealed she has feelings for Spider-Man that never follow up with. Never at all. But what is Young Avengers up to? It's mostly what they were up to during the events of Siege. Not a lot, per se. But, so in the case of Captain America, it's like, basically the very next thing he did just after he came back, and it's basically just leading into his involvement in Siege. But these one-shots are pretty good. I love them. I give this book a 9.5 out of 10. Yep. And if you're curious, what was Siege up to? What was Secret Warriors? I think they were dealing with mostly trying to shut down Hydra in the Secret Warriors book. Yeah, and speaking of book featuring Nick Fury, let's talk about Marvel Masterworks Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. Volume 1. Yep, that's our very next book here. Yep, where this book collects issues 35 to 49 of Strange Tales Volume 1. Now, in the case we have 3 story arcs in these very issues. 35 to 40 and a little bit epilogue in 41. Now, 135 is the first appearance of S.H.I.E.L.D. itself and Hydra. Hydra was not led in the book by Baron Wolfgang von Strucker. That was done in a later story. His was led by some businessman known as Imperial Hydra, who was in charge of Hydra this whole story, and Nick Fury. By the way, if you're really curious though, like, okay, does Nick Fury wear that blue suit that he wears that you see a lot over the years? No, he does. He wears basically like a suit and tie. Now, the reason why? I guess Stanley and Jack Kirby want to make him like James Bond. But this book is not Nick Fury's debut. That's in Sergeant Fury and the Howling Commandos #1. And here's a fun fact. Did you know that book was published the same time this was? Yes, seriously. That book lasted for a shocking 120 issues. And a lot of the book actually stopped publishing new stories at 120 because a lot of the rest of it became reprints. Yes, reprints. I think the book eventually concluded with issue 160, I think it was. So, mostly put in the case of these issues is mostly like Nick Fury versus Hydra. That's most what the story is. It's a really good story. I love it. 441 is basically the epilogue / start of the next story arc versus Mentolo. Yes, he makes his debut in these issues. He is only here for 3 issues and he leaves. Now, Imperial Hydra, who was the main villain in the previous story, he actually is killed off in issue 141 because, according to Hydra, he wasn't the real leader of Hydra. It was somebody else. He was just basically a stand-in. He was an imposter. Then basically, Raph, the mental stuff, which involved brain stuff for some reason. Dumbledore gets into stories, but he's not. Doesn't do very much in these issues. Mostly it's on Nick Fury. But what about, and there's also a whole thing in here, this about him being sort of the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. at this period of time. This is what we call Age of S.H.I.E.L.D. He gets sort of basically there's a minor politics of all these issues, but there's that. Now, for issues 144 to 149, these issues, he takes on a group known as Them. Who is Them? Well, they are later revealed, just after the debut, to be the Advanced Idea Mechanics, aka A.I.M. And you're probably thinking, does MODOK appear in the storyline? No! He does not. MODOK does not appear. And you're thinking, really? Why doesn't MODOK appear? The reason? He wasn't created yet. No joke. That was the reason why. He did not appear in the comics at this point in time. Yeah, mostly probably just them in the beekeeper suits. Yeah. They actually debut in like 146. Because originally they were them, but then basically they, they were called, A.I.M later. Now you might be curious though, when did MODOK appear? MODOK tends to be the most familiar character associated with him. He actually first showed up in Tales of Suspense number 64, number 94. And I think that was an Iron Man story, if I'm not mistaken. Let me take a look at that there. Nope, it wasn't that. It was actually a Captain America story. So he first showed up in the Captain America story first. Mm-hmm. Them was basically a group who disappeared for what? Basically, it's a precursor to A.I.M. That's most of exactly what they are. Mm-hmm. Oh, in the case of I thought it would start with 144. No, it started with 146. Sorry about that. They found a guy called the Druid for like a couple issues. Yeah, he's here for 2 issues and he pops up in Captain America. Yeah, I kind of forgot about this guy, so that he was just not around. I thought it was at 144. My mistake about that. But yeah, Mentalo, great character. Martin Flam, who in the Ultimate Universe became director of S.H.I.E.L.D. And after this 3-parter wrapped up, get this. That was released in January of 1966. His next appearance is not until 9 years later in the pages of Daredevil. No, not kidding about that. He came back in an issue of Daredevil. Why the heck came back in Daredevil? I have no freaking idea. But Martin Flume is an absolute great character. He generally puts the same appearance, these weird goggles, all his brains. So the story is kind of weird, but the character is great. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and after that Daredevil issue, he pops up sporadically over years. Like, if you're in Micronauts. Yes, Micronauts. Yeah, at one point, he was actually a member of the Secret Avengers. No, seriously. Actually, he was... Well, actually, not a member of the Secret Avengers. He was actually a part of the High Council of A.I.M. headed by the Supreme Scientist, Andrew Forson, who does not appear anymore. Nope. Now you might be curious what happened to the Scientist Supreme of the of A.I.M. Popped up in MODOK Head Games for 2 issues. Yeah. Yeah, and issue 4 was the most recent appearance today. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but this book is amazing. I love it. I'm gonna give this book a 10 out of 10. It is that awesome. Okay, so that's episode review. And that's gonna be a video tonight. So tomorrow, more 5-Man, Eden Zero, and probably another Comic Corner. Okay, thanks to you. Bye.